This is Actually I Meant That featuring Betty. She's here with me for this episode. She knows what's going on. She knows this is going to be a really tough episode. I love you. I just spilled my coffee everywhere too. So that's fun. I love you so much, Betty. She's such an angel. And she knows when things are going to be really tough. She has that intuitive edge. She has wisdom. I remember my psychic medium, Patty, she once told me, I showed her a picture of Betty and Noah when they were puppies. And she told me Betty has wise eyes. And I feel really connected to her right now. I'm already going to start crying. I cannot do this episode today. If you're new here, hi, my name's Kat. This is Actually I Meant That, a podcast where we say the thing, even when it's messy, even when it makes us uncomfortable, and especially when we're afraid of being misunderstood. And some of you might not understand what I'm going to talk about today, and some of you I know will. And that's why I'm doing it. I was actually supposed to talk about chronotypes today, and how genealogy affects them and all the things that play into your chronotype. And if you don't know what chronotypes are, you can research it. It's fascinating. I was excited to do that today because it was a lighter subject, but I've been going through a dark night of the soul, a lot of shadow work that's led to this spiritual awakening this week. And I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this today. And I got so much confirmation spiritually that this was the right thing to do. Some of you might not believe in this. Some of you may. Again, I am going to speak my truth and speak what I live by and how I move throughout this earth, through this journey we call life and this experience in quote unquote earth school, so that you can feel a little better about yours. Honestly, I really feel like that is my mission on this planet. It always has been since I was young. I am an open book. I do wear my heart on my sleeve. And today we're going to be talking about unpacking patterns, cycles, generational curses, conditioning, ancestral wounds that really aren't for us to own, that when we wake up to them and we really realize them in those rock bottom moments like I was going through yesterday, I went through a few days ago. I mean, I've been going through this for a couple of weeks now. I want you guys to sink into that and not avoid it, because there have been so many times in my life where I was taught to avoid these conversations, and now I'm facing them head on, and I'm doing them on a camera with a microphone in my hand now, because there's no better time to show you what this is like, and for you to, even if it's just for you to empathize with, like, I feel you, I understand what you're going through because I've been through it, or maybe you're going through this now. Really, I want to show you it's really okay. And I've had to tell myself that too. No more backspacing on our beliefs, no more deleting what we thought. And I want to provide and offer a space for us to embrace that, because as a recovering people pleaser, this is very much a part of my healing too. So thanks for joining this journey with me, and thank you for being here, because it is a vulnerable place. This one might be a little bit of a lengthier episode because I've got a lot to say. And I don't even frankly know where to start with it. I've been crying all week. Like, I'm talking messy. The tears that come up that you don't even know are going to come up, and you're like, why am I crying right now? You don't even realize it's going to happen, and you just let it go. You just let it go. You let it flow, and you're not even sure of the purpose in the moment. You just, like I said, you sink into it and you embrace it and you don't resist. It's just painful. And I really thought I was okay. I was like, I'm good. I always try to be optimistic in these moments and grateful, but I realize in these moments, I don't need to be fucking grateful right now. I can just let myself feel whatever I am feeling in this very moment, because that is what's needed. Looking at the storm and running away from it is not what's needed. Going straight into it is, because the quicker you get there, the quicker you run through the storm, the faster you can get out of it. And it's not about being a race, but when you avoid it, it's coming for you anyway. You're just prolonging your pain. So you might as well process it now. And that is what I've been going through as of the last week. In fact, probably the last couple of weeks. I told Noah, my eldest dog, I'm like, I don't want to cry more. If I start crying, I'm never going to stop. And the thing is, you do stop. You will. And you might cry again the next week or a couple of days later or even a couple of hours later. Who knows? But you have to let it go. You can't keep that shit locked up. It's not cool. It's not helpful. Sometimes you can't close the door on your feelings. You just can't. And you have to let it go. You've got to release it. And if it flows and flows and flows, let it It's powerful. So right now I am grieving, but no one died, kind of. And that's what makes this kind of grief so hard, because there's no funeral, there's no closure, there are no flowers, nothing like that. I just have this constant painstaking ache in my body of something I lost that I actually never really had in the first place. And it is so impossible to really tangibly provide example for this. But those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know, you're nodding your head like, yep, I get it. And that's who I'm talking to right now. This is the kind of grief that doesn't get a name. It's the kind of grief that people tell you, oh, you'll get over it. Just get over it and move on. But you can't. You can't. And guess what? That's totally fine. No one gets to tell you how fast you go through these emotions. No one gets to tell you how fast to process. And I think we struggle a lot with that in relationships. And we're going to talk a lot about relationships today, especially relationship with oneself, which is where it all starts. So as per usual, I'm going to be so for fucking real when I tell you this episode today is not for someone who wants answers to this kind of grief. It's not for the person who's like, give me a solution. Because frankly, I don't have a fucking solution for you other than to feel. That's my solution. And face the fucking storm and run through it. And I'm going to tell you it's going to suck. And some of you already know this, you know. But I will tell you the answer is not to suppress. The answer is not to run away, to avoid, to dismiss your own self. Because not only is that perpetuating this low vibrational energy in your being, but it's actually projected onto other people throughout the course of your life. So because you aren't facing this, you're giving other people treatment that they didn't deserve. You're going to see this is a very big theme for me and what I'm going to talk about today. So yeah, this is going to be really messy today, but it's coming from my whole heart. And it's going to be very honest. I just want you to know if you're grieving alone in the dark, this kind of grief over something that's very much still alive, you are not alone. You're actually not alone at all. And I hope that this helps. So on this episode, we're talking about what grief really is, why it hurts so much, what triggers grief, a movie scene that wrecked me completely and continues to. I mean, I just saw it recently and I'm like, here we go. I'm telling you, the universe is telling me to do this episode because I keep seeing all these signs. In fact, before this episode, I went onto YouTube to adjust a setting, and the first video on my feed was a tarot card reading for Sagittarius, which is my sign. And it said, red alert, ancestral cycles breaking or something like that. And I'm like, this is quite literally what I had intended to talk about. So we're going to talk about grief, what it is, why it hurts so much, what triggers it, the movie scene that wrecked me, the inner child exercise that changed my life, and it's going to help you too, many of you, some of you, and whoever it resonates with, it does, and whoever it doesn't, and that's okay. The grief of softness that never was, my own ancestral chains, like I said, and the conditioning with this, because there's so much, and this is the root of everything for me and why this is so painful. Why hurt people, we'll also talk about. And also the fact that we are really all just children in adult bodysuits. It doesn't mean that we're not responsible for regulating ourselves. It doesn't mean that as adults, we can't be examples for all of these different versions of ourselves throughout this life that we've already lived. And for our future selves, we don't talk about that enough. Because in the present, we can be an example for our present self, our past, and our future self. We can do it all. We really can. And it doesn't have to feel heavy. It might sometimes, but it doesn't have to be so daunting, okay? So there's self-responsibility that comes with all of this, and I'm going to talk about that too. But I want to start by telling you this. You can grieve someone or something that is still alive. You can grieve a version of yourself that you had to abandon to survive. And you can even grieve what never happened. You can grieve stories that you created. And right now, I'm grieving every single one of those things. And it has been really, really fucking hard. So what is grief? Really? Like, what even is this? Because grief isn't just about death. It's about an emotional, a biological, and a spiritual, in many cases, response to loss. And this is not just a loss of people, but it's the loss of identity, of innocence, of trust, of stories, sometimes, in more cases than not, that we make up in our heads to protect ourselves. It's the loss of survival patterns. And those losses, when they all come hitting you at once, my whole world has been rocked. And I'm one of those people, spiritually speaking, that absolutely have to hit rock bottom in order to get to a place of, okay, fine, this isn't working for me. Whether it's a pattern, a person, a place, or a thing, Something is not aligning right now. And I need to give myself that space and that time to understand what exactly that is. And the answer doesn't always come right away. Sometimes it does. Sometimes the intuition's like, hey, this is what it is. Listen to me. And you're like, no, I'm not going to fucking listen to you. I'm just going to ruminate. How about that? I'm just going to be super anxious and I'm not going to listen to you, even though that was the answer to begin with. But this is what we have to go through. And we have to give ourselves grace through this process and trust ourselves to handle it. That's something I have struggled with my entire life because I was told and taught to rely on other people for guidance, for decision making. This is part of that people pleaser experience, the creation of a people pleaser. And once you start breaking through these things, it's so much more than just never burning a bridge or saying yes to everyone. It's trusting your fucking self throughout your whole life, in every decision you make, in every avenue you get into, but remembering also that anything you choose into in this life, whether it's a job, a person, a place that you visit, a place that you move to, anything you choose into, you can choose out of. And you might say, well, I didn't choose into having a child, or I didn't choose into something more permanent, but you can choose out of the conditioning that your brain is in, the story that you keep telling yourself. That's something you can choose out of around that experience. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have a baby, for example. I talked about this on the last episode, how I don't want kids. And a lot of people regret having kids. And that's a very real and valid experience. It doesn't make you a bad person, but you can change the narrative around that experience. You don't have to constantly tell yourself, I regret this. I hate this so much. It's the worst. I know that is so much easier said than done because I don't have a kid. So I'm not speaking for you, but I am lightly and gently and in the most loving way suggesting we can change these patterns and these thought processes around our experience and the stories we tell ourselves. It matters. It really does. So the Kubler-Ross Foundation says that grief is a multidimensional response to perceived loss, which isn't even a loss. Like we really didn't even actually lose anything. In fact, in a lot of cases, we had everything to gain through that perceived loss, but we tell ourselves this to protect ourselves because it feels safe in the moment. And again, that's valid. That's okay. Dr. Alan Wolfelt calls it the soul's response to loss. The body responds with disrupted circadian rhythms, increased cortisol, and nervous system dysregulation, which I've been going through all of those. And I've been through this before. This isn't new. This kind of grief isn't novice in my life. It's not the first time I've gone through it. But for some reason, at 34 years old, this one in particular is hitting me so much harder. And I went through every single one of those. I couldn't sleep last night. I felt like my blood pressure was rising. That stress response is so real. And grief is our own. This is where self-responsibility comes in. I watched a video yesterday, and the psychologist was talking about how grief is ours. Like we are in charge of it. We're actually in control of it. But so many of us have been hardwired to avoid it, to run from the pain. And this is when he uses that example of running towards the storm. And this is the craziest shit ever. Because before I even watched that video, the first thing I did when I woke up yesterday, this was the journal entry that I wrote right before I watched that video. So fucking weird. I am the architect of my reality. The painter with the brushes that paint either the most colorful, cosmic, prismatic, gorgeous views you've ever seen or the most treacherous waves crashing in the gloomy, overcast horizon that feels internally chaotic and at times completely debilitating. On days like today, I let myself move with those waves running into the storm. After all, and all I could see yesterday in the morning was a storm. Me in this like wooden ship trying to run from all of this because the ocean's truly my biggest fear. So of course I visualize that in my mind because these are these stories. This is the energy we create around this, right? But it's sometimes what we have to do. On days like today, I let myself move with those waves. After all, I'm the creator of them. Literally what I just said. This, by the way, I wasn't even like consciously writing this. I told myself, just let it out. Whatever comes up, come up. And this is like, to me, that's such an important part of journaling is just letting the light flow onto the page. Listen to the next sentence. This is what I'm saying. I knew it was coming from a spiritual place because I don't even remember writing half. Like I just wrote it yesterday and I don't even remember this. The next sentence is, I let words flow straight from my heart through this black ink pen and I watch it express what I can't fully put into words in person. But I'm here, I'm trying. As a deep feeler, even I find myself in panic when I'm facing the storm. Those waves, they're daunting. I frantically flap around the water, looking for a boat to save me. All the while, I know I am the creator of this terrifying, debilitating masterpiece, and only I can save myself from this juxtaposition of panic and yet complete paralysis. I am the architect of my reality. Will I save myself? I can't even read that. I'm still very raw right now. I'm still very going through the motions. And I wanted to do this podcast episode now because this is spiritual awakening in real time. It's happening. I'm going through the darkest time. And we talk all the time about, I went through this time period. And I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity to just say these things in the moment because I feel my most spiritual right now. Actually, I feel my most empowered and energetically elevated, even though it's so dark. Because from darkness, there is light. And these are the moments when I feel like this is actually going to resonate. So again, thank you guys for listening to this. There's a quote that really resonated with me, and it says, "Grief is what love feels like after the loss. It's love with nowhere to go." We've heard that one before. It's so true. It is so true. So why does grief hurt so much? Grief doesn't just take a person or a story that you might have made up. It takes a version of you that was built around the thing that starts to collapse. It takes from you an identity that you clung to for a long time, and it feels like you're losing safety and you're actually gaining protection. And it is so confusing in the moment. There's this thing called the brain's default mode network, and it becomes hyperactive during grief, which increases obsessive thoughts and emotional confusion. How many times have we gone through our brains and we're like, oh my God, but what about this? And what if this happens? And if I let go of this, then this is going to be my life. And if I leave that job, then I'm never going to have this. We literally create narratives that don't exist. And I remember a long while back, I was in a therapy session, probably back in 2018 when I started. And I said, if I don't respond to this person in my life, they're going to get really angry. They're going to be really upset. And she's like, is that happening right now? And I'm like, no. And I think I talked about this. I think I talked about this in the people-pleasing episode. But it always rings true. That was one of those things that was branded on me, one of those lessons. And she's like, I've noticed with you that you create a lot of stories that don't exist. And she said, do you think you're telling yourself these stories to protect yourself? And it was the first time I'd ever heard that. First time. I was 28 years old. And I was like, wow, yeah, I do that a lot. I do. And it was exactly nail on the head. Thanks, Carolyn. I didn't need to be attacked today. But no, that's exactly what I do. There's also this thing called the dual process model. And it explains how we oscillate between loss-oriented and restoration-oriented coping. So we lose something, how am I going to restore it? How am I going to fix it? How am I going to do that? The brain is quite literally on so much overload that we induce our own pain. We're trying to find all these answers instead of just sitting in the fucking storm. And it is so not fun. I know it's not. You know what I often think about is when you have an injury and you're like, this fucking hurts so bad. You know what else is? Menstrual fucking pain. Holy shit. My last period, I don't want to say it was the worst one, but I haven't had pain like that in a very, very long time. And it just hit with a vengeance out of what felt like nowhere. And I remember telling myself, just fucking sit with it. Just sit with it, Kat. You got to just let it happen. And I tried to honor my body instead. I tried to say thank you for working. Thank you for functioning. It might not be the best, most ideal way of going about it, but thank you for my womanhood. Thank you. And I wasn't trying to be toxically positive in that moment. I was just trying to switch the energy up. And it actually helps so much. The same goes for perceived loss. Just let yourself feel it. Avoiding it is going to do nothing for you. It's just going to keep repeating patterns. And that has been the hardest thing for me recently. That's exactly what has happened for decades. And this whole realization I've had around all of this is hitting me at 34 years old. I knew it was a problem. I knew that it was ancestral. I knew about this particular problem, especially in the women. Well, yes, from the women in my family. I knew this was a problem, but I had to get to this place to actually force myself to sit with it. And here we are. There's also another quote that says, we don't grieve the thing, we grieve the meaning we gave it. This is why the grief is yours. And we do place all these meanings and definitions on it. And it's not actually this loss that we're grieving, it's the story we tell around it. And a lot of different things can trigger grief. Change that is growth, like good change. Good change will trigger grief because in order to get to that place of peace, you are going to have to go through some painstaking revelations and realizations. And it's going to require you to change a pattern, to change a behavior that was learned for so long that kept you, quote unquote, safe. It ain't safe. You're actually hurting yourself and you're harming others in the process because you're repeating these conditioned responses. You're just repeating them from other people who taught it to you. And maybe today you can say, you know what? I'm not fucking doing this anymore. I am not allowing myself to be my grandmother. And I'm going to talk about that too, because that's this whole thing with me. I'm going to get into my thing, I promise. But I'm trying to help you guys through this if you're going through it yourself first. Clarity can give us grief. Holy shit, did I have clarity yesterday? It hurt so bad. I was so clear in what I was feeling. I was like, wow, that is really what's happening right now. That I have created this. That instead of being a little bit softer, I have this like hard shell up, thinking that it was good, that it was safe. How often do we see this in this world, especially? People just constantly with their fucking walls up and they're like about to fighting words. Like that, it's not necessarily helpful. We're not really facing it. And what if I chose softness over what is really just a weak place? It's a wounded energy. What if I chose to be empowered and I did soften up and I wasn't in survival mode all the time? Because the truth is, we often say people put you in this survival mode. Actually, a lot of times we put ourselves in survival mode. We do that because of our own conditioning. And do you want to know what happens? Because we are so prone to projecting this onto other people and blaming other people, we can't look at ourselves anymore. So we don't say, oh, well, I put myself in that survival mode because of my grandmother, because of my mother, and how I learned all of these habits from them. I learned all of these responses from them. I'm not saying your experiences weren't valid, but when we constantly avoid self-accountability and self-responsibility, what are we going to do to other people? We're going to blame them. You put me into survival mode. If you can't have me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And I am not saying that you can't have bad moments and you can't be with people who sit there with you and feel through it with you. That's fair. That's valid. That's beautiful. That's connective. But when you keep doing that, what do you expect someone to feel? When you keep controlling, when you keep like just nitpicking at everything, because really it's a problem within yourself that hasn't healed. When you keep projecting that onto someone else, they're gonna be so drained. They're going to be tired. That like shift in self-identity, I'm seriously going through it right now, and it has been so painful because there's so much grief over all of the years that I didn't let that go. Like I could have just let it go and I didn't. And I was very hard on people I love because of it. And I'm not blaming myself because there were certain things that happened that got me to a certain place that made me feel resentful. But instead of alchemizing it later, processing it, I put a wall up and I just had this edgy ass chip on my shoulder energy that made people feel very, very scared and unsafe with me. And that makes me feel so bad because that was on me. And this is like the part of relationships in this lifetime that we don't talk about enough. It's the self-responsibility. Where was I not open enough in that moment? And I did this for years. I closed myself off. I ridiculed. I criticized other people because it's really how I felt about myself. It was unaddressed trauma. It was conditioned responses and behavioral patterns. And the truth is, making these changes to choose out of that cycle, it feels like emotional abandonment. It feels like I'm abandoning this version of myself that kept me safe for so long, and you're not. You're growing and you're evolving. I can't say this enough. Another thing that triggers grief is a lot of times inner child wounds that are reactivated. Like you meet a new person, a friend, a partner, and even if it's someone from your past and you talk to them and they say something and you're like, oh, that reminds me of, like, you don't realize it in that moment sometimes, but on a subconscious level, something hit you hard from what they said. This is the beauty of relationships because they are holding up mirrors to ourselves. But it's all on us. It is all on us. It doesn't matter who the fuck you're in a relationship with or who you're friends with. It is holding up a mirror to our insecurities, to our triggers. And when we realize this, it does indeed bring on this sense of grief. Another thing is when you're in relationships, you're in a toxic relationship, for example, and you realize that wasn't love, that was control. But for so long, you had yourself convinced that that person loved you, when in fact, they actually really just loved to control you. And that was their response. I have been there. That's part of this healing journey for me. This particular awakening for me is the number of times I had to have control because of someone's past behaviors that I couldn't let go, because of the pain they caused that I just couldn't let go. It did not mean I had to stay with them. It meant I could have walked away with grace. I could have. And I'm not saying I would have been the most graceful walking away. I'm not saying you have to be perfect and so grateful for everything. Like, you don't have to, but at some point you can accept that it was meant for you to grow. Like I said, from darkness there is light. These relationships, the control factor, the lies that you experience with certain people, that's all their own stuff too. And sometimes we have to go through this with other people to realize things about ourselves. It's interesting because from a somatic standpoint, somatic being the way your body feels, the nervous system actually codes grief as a threat. Red alert. How funny is that? That I saw that video before I recorded this episode today and it said red alert. And now we're talking about grief being a threat. That's absolutely insane. There's so many synchronicities. The synchronicities are synchronicitying for this, really. Even when the danger is gone, okay? The body still responds like it's happening now. So it's still very much present. You feel like that, like the cortisol levels rising like we were talking about earlier. This quote really, really fucking hit me. Grief is the funeral your ego holds when reality doesn't match the story you told yourself. Because that was all your ego, just trying to protect you. The reality is, this isn't actually what was happening. And then you're like, oh my God, now I'm suffering a loss of something that I created. It's the craziest, strangest thing. I also just had this weird deja vu just happen now. Like, I feel like I said this before. I'm telling you, I don't know what it is with this episode and this message, but this is really coming from a different place, like a different dimension. I don't know what's going on. So now I want to talk with you guys about what is going on with me. I have been suffering this need for control in some of my relationships for a very long time. I have nitpicked. I have made people feel unsafe. I have been super distant at times. I've been incredibly reactive. And yes, there were reasons for this. But at the end of the day, it's irrelevant because they happened so long ago. So something would happen. It would hurt me. I'm not justifying it, but I became resentful over time. And instead of facing that and saying, this actually might not align with me because I don't deserve that, I continued to repeat cycles of staying. And what did that do for me? It just perpetuated resentment. It perpetuated control over other people. That's all it did for me when I really could have chosen out of that. And that is exactly what my grandmother did. My grandmother died when I was 3, but I'll tell you about this in a second. There's some things that I have reflected on about my grandmother that have a lot to do with this. Her daughter, my mom, I've noticed that pattern of needing to be in control in the women in my family, of being really tough on the exterior, brutally honest, super bold. And I love that about the women in my family, but it's a blessing, but it's also the biggest curse. That's all it is. It's a wounded energy. It is a source of unresolved pain and trauma. It's the trauma response. We fight it, we flee from it, or we freeze. We're not actually healing anything. And maybe that's part of our process, but when we keep perpetuating it, we're not doing anything about it. And when I was with my psychic medium many years ago, she said to me, your grandma is here. And my grandma she always comes forward in sessions with psychic mediums. It doesn't matter what medium it is. It doesn't matter what healer it is with psychic abilities. Like, she always comes forward. I feel that she's making up for lost time. I was 3 when she passed away, and I feel like this is her way of showing support for me that she couldn't in this physical realm. And I do feel her presence very much because she was a very bold, strong Virgo woman. Of course she was a freaking Virgo. Like, of course. And I'm named after her, Grandma Catherine. And my grandma always comes forward still to this day. This is like 7 years later. She still apologizes for perpetuating certain behaviors and cycles that she passed on to my mom. And I've told my mom this. I'm like, your mother's apologizing. The thing is, we all have the capacity and we all have the opportunity to make those changes, to become aware of these patterns. And it is very, very, very hard and painful. But my grandmother was seen by so many people as this super controlling, like just mean lady. Like my own mother has said this about my grandmother. She was really mean. She was very mean to me. And I'm like, that sounds familiar. No, I mean, I love my mom. I love you, Roxanne. I do. You know that. But it does get passed down if it's unaddressed. And so, yes, there were probably many times where my grandmother was very mean. But I went to the psychic medium and she said to me, there's more to that story that people aren't talking about. Your grandmother was really hurting. She was very overwhelmed. She wasn't getting any help. She was planning everything. She was cooking everything. She was doing everything, which is tale as old as time for a lot of women in this particular society. And because of that, she got really, really defensive. She got really controlling. It was just her way of navigating the grief over her not being able to walk away because she didn't feel that she deserved better. And when I heard that, I lost my mind because I never had more compassion for her and the women in my family that I did in that moment. That was really painful. And I told my sister over the holidays, I was like, I told her about that. And my sister was like, you know what? That actually could be very true. So a lot of this is due to our own fears too. It all comes back to fear. There's anxious attachment, avoidant, secure, whatever. We put labels on so many things in this lifetime, which I think is very endearing. It's a very endearing thing that humans do to really navigate and understand this journey. And I think it's needed and I think it's necessary. I appreciate it. I respect it. But oh my goodness, when we talk about anxious attachment, abandonment, those things are very real too. When you're a child and you get abandoned. And then there's so much grief that comes with that over time because you just feel that that's what's normal, that that's what's safe. I have been involved with people in life who have gone to that as their main status quo. Well, no one's going to show up for me anyway. Adults. This is why I say we are kids in adult bodysuits. That's what's happening. Because there are adults in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who are saying these things because it's how they felt as kids. And on that note, there is this scene from this movie called Hope Floats from 1998. Some of you might have seen this movie. Some of you might have seen this clip going around because it went viral on social media. And this little girl is in the driveway and her dad is about to drive away because he was leaving the marriage. I never saw the movie. I just saw this clip. He's about to drive away and she's begging him, please don't leave. Please don't go. I really want you to stay. Please don't go. And she's screaming, Daddy, Daddy, please don't leave. And he's like, I gotta go. And he drives away. It is the most heart-wrenching scene. I'm going to play it for you now. I won't be able to keep it together as I watch this because it's terrible.
You told me you wanted me with you, remember?
Listen, honey, I've got to go. Now don't do this to yourself, okay?
Don't make a scene, he said to her.
Stop it, Daddy!
Bernice, you know I'd take you with me if I could.
You can!
Try to understand, baby. Connie and I, we need this time to ourselves to try to make it go over. Then I'll come back for you. I promise. I promise. I promise. Now go on inside, please.
You want me. You wrote in the letter. Please. Let me in. You want me.
I'll always want you, Bernice. You're my little princess.
No.
But your mama, she needs you.
No.
And you need her. I love you, princess. I gotta go.
It's like that kind of stuff from when you're a kid that creates so much as an adult that comes back up. And we feel these things and we don't talk about them because it's like, you're an adult, get over it. And that's so invalidating in that moment. And she needed it. She needed that support. And this is where the scene just breaks me, because it wasn't just her grief in that moment. It was mine too. At many points in my life when I felt like I didn't have that space to be expressive, to be soft. And it hardened me. It really hardened me. I feel like that little girl is so many of us, and she's still within us. It reactivates this kind of grief that we have over never really being able to fully feel in front of someone, to safely feel, to safely express. And it's so hard. It's an emotional flashback, psychologically. Your body's reliving past pain through present stimuli. Abandonment in childhood, by the way, wires our nervous system to expect loss. And even fiction can reopen real wounds. So again, those stories we tell ourselves, and it's okay, it's all to process this grief. On this note, when I watched that video again, I was like, oh, this reminds me so much of that inner child exercise that completely shattered me, sent me into a spiral. I'm not suggesting you do these things or participate in them or watch them. Again, if it hits, take it, explore it for yourself. If it doesn't, just let it go. You don't have to. It's not for everyone. But there is this therapist on the Oprah show in 1990. His name's John Bradshaw. A lot of you probably saw this clip too, because this went viral on social media as well. He's leading an inner child healing exercise. And I don't go to this video often at all. I go to it when I feel called to it, just like anything else. I'm very spiritual in the way I move about this life. This is why I'm grieving, because I didn't move in the way that aligns with me. And I put someone else and several other people through hell because of that. Again, like I said, this is like dark night of the soul shit. It's very hard to realize this. But when I need a deep release and to process it, to process something that I'm experiencing in this present tense, I go back to that time because I know that's where it comes from. And a lot of people in the spiritual community say therapy sucks because therapy just re-triggers trauma. And it does. But I think sometimes it does serve a very good purpose. And I think sometimes it's needed to go back into the archives of your life and grieve through those moments from your childhood. Because often when I'm crying at 34 years old, I'm the 7-year-old with blue cargo pants on, butterfly clips in her hair, who wasn't held, who was told to stop crying, who was told to get over it. You need to stop. You gotta stop. Like as if it were an inconvenience and an embarrassment to people around me. And I just wanted to be held. And at 34 years old, I have to hold myself. And that's a huge responsibility when you didn't have that growing up. And that actually builds resentment too, because you're like, why didn't I have that? So many other people had that. Why didn't I get that? You know, inner child work engages the limbic system, which bypasses logic and reconnects us with our emotional truth. And I think the mind and the ego is helpful at times, but the heart we always forget about because we're so cerebral at times. We're so logic. We try to make sense of everything, and sometimes it doesn't make any fucking sense because it's just a way of processing. You know, maybe we can have a psychologist on the show sometime break this down for us in a way that is logical, because that's sometimes the way that a lot of us need to navigate and process. But for me, I just encourage you to feel. Just let yourself go through the feelings in order to heal whatever it is that you're trying to get through. That's why these exercises, they put you into those realities. And you're finally letting the wound come up and talk. It is so painful. Oh God, it's so painful. You know, this grief, this ancestral grief that I'm feeling, I'm not only feeling it for myself, I feel the lineage through my body. I can feel the grief of my grandmother. I can feel the grief of my mother. It's like this screaming and crying from multiple entities that I'm feeling. And I know it sounds like a possession of some sort, but it does feel like that. And it's really hard to process. And I wish that I could change their realities for them, but I can't. That was their journey. And I do believe there was a spiritual reason I chose this particular setup and arrangement for my life, to have the grandmother I had, and then therefore have the mother that I have, who I love very much, who loves me in the way that she knows how. I'm not making excuses for everything, and neither is she, but this was all learned. And her generation was not taught to have these conversations because they would call women crazy. They would send them to mental institutions. Therapists and psychologists were called quacks. They're not needed. They're crazy. That means you're crazy. If you have to feel through this and you cry, you're crazy. There are several people I have dated in this life who were told not to cry growing up. Like, it was such a bad thing. It was embarrassing. Again, just absolutely repulsive. Do not cry. Especially men. I can't even live like that anymore because I'm like, no, for so long I wasn't allowed. I'm doing it now. Now I'm crying. And we can call it late blooming. We can call it dysregulation. But in order to get to a place of groundedness, sometimes we have to be dysregulated. And it's going to happen. And what if we just sank into the dysregulation and sank into the grief and faced the storm head on, and I think we'd get through it a lot faster. So it's not about the time frame, but I think we would get through it. And on this note, it's really important to understand grief isn't always about something that happened really for you. It can be about things that didn't happen, that you really needed, that you really wanted, but remembering that you're in control of your situation. And then you grieve the decisions, right? Or lack thereof, to walk away. The decision to stay instead of walk peacefully into alignment away from something that no longer serves you. That is real grief. It's not the loss itself. Like I said before, it is not the loss itself. It's the realizations. It's the spiritual awakenings that makes it so hard. Going back to the ancestral part of this, at least for me, and many of you can relate to this too, I really do believe that what doesn't get expressed gets inherited. And at 34, I'm finally I hit this rock bottom. I've been told by a therapist, by healers, by mediums, I have been told by everyone, you have to really hit the rockiest of fucking bottoms. You have to be in the depths of hell in most cases to give up on something, whether it's a pattern, a way of thinking, a person. You have to get there to that place. And so many of us do. I really do have to be in the darkest of places at times for me to access the light in all of it. And we don't talk about the pain that's required to get there. The grief that I'm also feeling is not due in part to my inability to love someone in the past. In relationships, for example, romantically. It's not because I didn't love them. I loved them with my whole entire heart. And I always do. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I love so hard and so deeply. But what I'm grieving is the hurt that I caused them because I wasn't able to soften, because I couldn't get past betrayal. And I'm not saying that you always should. There are different responses to this. Sometimes people decide, I really love this person so much. They made a significantly damaging choice, but maybe it's in their journey to go back and return. And the thing is with me, I went back and I made the choice to work through things. And in reality, I didn't work through it. I just stayed in resentment, which is exactly what the women in my family did. I couldn't soften. And because of that, I couldn't trust. I couldn't access that energy and I wouldn't let them in. I shut them out. I didn't tell them about my accomplishments. I didn't tell them what was going on in my life because I was like, you know what? They hurt me. So even if it was subconscious, I don't even think, I wasn't even doing it on purpose. It was just the way that I was feeling. And now I'm not grieving who I lost in my life at that time. I'm grieving who I was when I was with them. And it's the hardest thing I've ever fucking gone through. And so often because of this pattern throughout my life of just handling things on my own, get over it. Stop your crying. Stop. That avoidance that was taught to me, that hyper independence, it is a trauma response. And it's not helpful for connection and bringing two souls together in a loving union. It's not helpful. It is not creating a safe space for two people to fully express and open up. And I have been very tough and hard. And what it comes down to is we're all just children walking around in adult bodysuits. I don't care what anyone says about this. It's the truth. Anxious, avoidant, dismissive, secure, whatever label you want to put on it, these are not identities. They're survival strategies. And it's in these times of grief, deep, painstakingly awful grief that's so numbing yet so painful at the same time. It's all these things, it's all these feelings. It's in these moments that we see that so clearly. We come face to face with it. And I'm like, oh my God, wow, this is fucking ratchet. You see these people sometimes too, and you're like, why does that person have such a chip on their shoulder? That person's such an asshole. That person's so mean. They're so cold. Deep down, they were actually once this kid that wanted to be bright and soft and light and cheerful. And they didn't get that opportunity. They were robbed of that because they had to survive. They had to parent people at a very young age. They had to self-cope. And if we don't address this in adulthood, these wounds, these patterns, we are severely, and I say this so seriously, we are severely limiting intimate connections with other human beings. We are eliminating safe spaces completely because we're still living in a past version of ourselves. And we haven't fully stepped into this new empowered version. And it is so fucking hard to do that. Do you know how scared I am to soften? I am terrified. I am terrified to just trust, to just soften, to just be a little bit lighter because I'm terrified of getting hurt. But do I trust myself enough? What was that line I wrote in my journal? Will I save myself from the storm? This is all something I'm creating at the end of the day. And yeah, people might burn us, but I asked my therapist recently, I was like, what if this happens? And do you want to know what my therapist said? Well, that's just the risk we take. That's just the risk we take. So right now I'm grieving for myself, that little girl within. I don't want to hide my true vulnerability under the guise of strength anymore because it's not strength. It's actually so deeply wounded. And I want to be honest and alive in that softness. And if that means having to grieve through this for a while, then I have to go through that. I have to honor myself and I have to do that. And so do you. If you feel this and if it resonates with you, I want you to take that time for yourself too. It's going to feel like shit, but fuck, here we are. We're doing it together, my sisters and brothers. We're in it together. And I don't think healing is about becoming perfect. And I think healing is forever. I'm so tired of people saying, well, they're not healed and they're not healed. I've said that before. I got trapped in all of that spiritual ego before. And it's like, no, you're always going to be healing. Because the truth is life is going to throw all of these series of events at us that we don't even realize are going to trigger more things. And if we're not talking about it, we're not working on it actively, when it comes up, it's just going to keep coming up. And then we're going to wonder, why don't I have a partner who loves me, who I can trust? Because it starts with us. And this is where the radical self-responsibility and accountability comes into play. But instead, a lot more people are going to choose to just blame the other person when it's really just both people. It takes two to regulate. I had a very healing exchange this morning. This person in my life said, with love, you have this you're mad at the world type of thing going on. And he's right. I do. And I am typically this optimistic, bubbly person, but when it comes to a romantic connection, that is so different for me than a friendship. Not because I don't go deep with my friends. I love talking deeply with my friends. I love them so dearly. But when you're in a romantic relationship versus a friendship or a familial connection, it is such a mirror to everything that makes you uncomfortable. But in my life personally, being romantically involved with someone is the greatest form of healing. And I'm grateful for all of the opportunities I've had. And I think my one friend, she calls me a serial monogamist, which I am. I've only had serious relationships. I've never been one to date. And there's nothing wrong with that. For a long time, I was ashamed of that. And I actually now realize I needed to be in all of these relationships to finally realize I'm not some tough bitch. I am fucking really hurting. I'm hurting myself, but I'm also hurting other people. And you could be also wasting someone's time if you're not addressing this soon enough. And that's not fair to either of you. So basically what I'm saying is go be in serious relationships. I'm just kidding. No, I feel like there's so much division too today. I had to stop with the videos online yesterday. I could not. I was like, this is too divisive for me. And I get it. I understand there is this collective ancestral healing amongst us women going on. But when it comes to my body, for example, I don't get results in my health by hating my fucking body. I'm not going to see the results I want by saying, you suck, you're ugly, you have fat here, I never do that. I fucking love my body. And I mean that, wholeheartedly. I love every bump. I love my body because it's been through a lot. It's carried me through a lot. Thank God for my body. I don't really care about all those aesthetics. That's great. If, I can be a little toned and fit, that's great. I love that. I'm healthy. That's what counts. But I don't get results if I'm ever seeking results, specifically by hating something. So, sisters, I hear you so loud and clear. I get it. My grandmother would get it. My deceased grandmother, her daughter, my mom gets it. My grandmother was the lady who always told people men are pigs. That was her way of life. That was her thought process. And here's the thing. I get it. I do, but I don't want to subscribe to that. I do not think all men are fucking bad. I don't. Call me, delusional, but that's how I've gotten everything I want in my life anyway. Why do you think I make 6 figures in my business now? Multiple 6 figures. Because I'm delusional as fuck. So I'm going to do the same thing with men. I think there are great men out there. I've met some of them, and I think they're lovely, and I think they're protective, and I think they're trying. I think some of them are just really fucking scared. And they're on their own journeys, and they might not be as expressive as us, because let's be clear, ladies, we have had so much fucking shit thrown at us since from a young age. Like, we had to be everything, right? Men didn't have to do that as much. And that's on them too. It is. But are we helping them by hating them? Are we getting the results we want by hating men? So it's like these things, and like this is what I'm learning in my relationships. It's on me too. I can't just keep blaming the other person for everything. If I chose to stay somewhere, it's on me to look at myself in the mirror and say, where can I heal? Takes 2 to tango. Anyway. Oh, Lord. So I think that's a wrap for today. I am emotionally exhausted, spiritually spent right now. Honestly, I am pouring my whole entire fucking heart out to you. And I hope for some of you this landed. Because if it impacted one person, that's worth it to me. Thank you from the bottom, middle, and top of my heart for being here with me. It means the world. It really does. I love talking to you about these things. And make sure you stay tuned for new episodes of Actually, I Meant That come out every Thursday wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. Love you guys. I'll see you on the next one. All right. That is a wrap. That was really fucking hard today. Right, Betty? She's concerned. She's like looking at me like, what? Are you okay? I love you. Come here. This one has been my rock. Look at her on the chest. Are you a healer? Oh, I'm so grateful. What do you have to say about today's episode? I love you. She's such a cuddle bug. She knows. She doesn't even need to speak. It's like we have this unspoken telepathy that happens. I love you so much. No, but I do believe you were sent to help me heal. I'm so grateful for you. Yeah, do you have to say something? No, you don't want to? She's like, bitch, I'm just wise as I am. I don't need to say anything. She just gets to heal while she exists. Isn't that beautiful? She just exists and she's healing. We love that for her. That's a wrap, girlfriend. That's a wrap, my love. Thank you for being there always. Love you.